We're here today for a luncheon for Jim Denning with our honored speaker and guest, Congresswoman Lynn Jenkins, and Robba Moran, who is the Kansas Regent. The Women for Jim Denning luncheon was started when Jim was running for the House of Representatives in District 19. He is now running for Senate 8 in Johnson County. And this is a luncheon that the Women for Jim Denning put on for him every year.
You know, we've done some remarkable things in Kansas already. If you think about the budget, over the last, as far as I can tell, when I went back all the way to 1960, Kansas had spent every single penny that it had collected in tax revenues and more for 40 some years. And the last session, and Kelly Miggs and Amanda Gross were in the House with me, we all came in together. And we were able to grow government by just a little over 1%, and we put $500 million in the bank. And I think that's really positive for many reasons. Number one, we showed that Republicans can govern. We funded Medicaid, which is the insurance plan for the very poor. We funded it. We funded our schools. We gave schools another $40 million. It was about a 2% increase. So we took care of the basic needs, and we still only grew government by 1%. And to put that into perspective, when we went into the House in 2010, I believe the state of Kansas had less than $1,000 in its operating account. So if you think where we came and where we are now, that's pretty remarkable. And that was with, with one chamber not being all that cooperative. So we really did fantastic things in the first 2 years. And going forward, Kansas has many things going for us. We now have one of the most competitive tax policies with the surrounding states. Colorado will be the only state that has a lower tax policy than Kansas. So it's very small business friendly. You've probably heard the discussions about any kind of partnership or LLC income, non-wage passing through at no tax. And that should be a very big deal. When you talk to the big accounting firms like CBiz and BKD, they're getting lots and lots of inquiries already about moving their partnerships to Kansas or growing them. So it'll take a few years for that policy to get some legs, but like Lynn said, overnight we became very competitive from a tax policy standpoint. So some of the things that we're going to be addressing next year as a state will be Medicaid. And we have Medicare at the national level, and then we have Medicaid at the state level, which takes care of children and the very poor. And what I've learned from my short time in the House, which is 2 years, we're freshmen this year, what I've learned is that everybody hates and wants to beat up on Medicaid, but if someone wants to change it, then all of a sudden it's the best darn thing besides sliced bread. So we know that Medicaid is very fractured here in Kansas. There are several people in the room from the healthcare industry, and the buzzwords in healthcare are integrated care, patient-centered care, medical homes, chemical care organizations. That's the new wave of managed care, and we're just testing it. Nobody has any idea if it's going to fail like the first wave of managed care, which started in the 70s and died a horrible death in the early 90s, which we all lived through. We have no idea if the new managed care scenario will work or not, but it is going to be tried. There's too much pressure not to try it. And the folks lining up against the governor and anybody that wants to touch Medicaid, it's just amazing to me that all of a sudden it's the best program and we shouldn't tinker with it at all. So, you'll be hearing lots and lots about that as well. And then on the local level, like the DMV software conversion, You know, it's amazing that anybody in government ever wants to touch a program, because you take so much criticism for trying to do anything to improve it. And the DMV program, it did get a rocky start, and it probably wasn't managed perfectly. It had some system crashes, and the system was down all day a few times. But in general, when we were in committee, through the interim committees, and we had the treasurers testify, they're within 1 or 2 minutes of their old transaction speed. So it started out rocky, but it's pretty close to being normal. But to hear the counties talk about it, it's putting them out of business and so forth. So again, it's kind of like Medicaid. If you want to touch something that's 20 or 30 years outdated, you better have asbestos underwear on, because you really take a lot of heat. And I think that's pretty obvious with the governor. He's taking a lot of heat for trying to make some changes. And when we get into the House and Senate next year, we're going to have a very strong working majority of Republicans. And we're going to do lots of things in a hurry. I could see us making some significant policy changes in 60 days and ready to come home, because it's not going to be like it was last year, where we didn't do anything significant until the last 10 days. We piddled around the first 60 days and then tried to squeeze the whole entire session in the final 10 days. So I think we're going to come very strong with some significant policy changes and get our jobs done very quickly. Another positive for Kansas is energy. Having grown up in western Kansas, my dad was in the oil business his whole entire career, and I grew up in the oil industry and went on many rigs with my dad, hauled lots of pipe, and got really, really dirty with him as well. But the thing that's going to be very positive for Kansas is, right now Kansas produces about 100,000 barrels of oil a day, and there is a reserve in northwest Kansas that we haven't drilled in northwest Kansas for probably 50 years. But with horizontal drilling and fracking, there's an oil reserve in northwest Kansas that has over 2 billion barrels of oil in reserve. And it's projected that it could produce 400,000 additional barrels of oil a day.
I was sworn in with Barack Obama. Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, and Harry Reid there for that first year had 60 votes in the Senate. And so, my first term was tough. We just got run over every single day. And it was another big government program every day. There was a stimulus or Obamacare or Dodd-Frank, I just pick one. There's plenty to choose from. In last election cycle, we took it back and we said we're going to stop this craziness, and we got the House. And I've been proud of the work that we've done as majority in the House. We passed our budget in short order, a budget that gets to balance and puts us on a path to totally eliminating the $16 trillion in debt. That does it without a tax increase. We have 30-some jobs bills that we passed to just basically overcome the barriers to job growth, litigation, regulation, and taxation. We've gone through the majority of our appropriation process, but as you well know, the Senate, under Harry Reid's leadership, is not doing any of those things. It's been probably 1,200, maybe 60 days at this point since they've passed a budget. They're not going to entertain any of our jobs bills. They're not going to pass their appropriation bills. They're just not going to meet us at the conference table. And I guess that's the biggest frustration for those of us in the Republican conference in Washington, is we just never imagined a Senate that wouldn't do their work. And it's not because Pat Roberts and Jared Graham don't want to do the work. It's simply The leader has rolled the dice and decided to do nothing is better than to show what they really are for and actually have to vote for it. And so, it just goes back to government 101. The House has done its work. The way it's supposed to work is the Senate does its work. We sit around a conference table, do our horse trading, but you never get to do the horse trading. You never get to solutions if you don't have the other partner in crime ever show up with a bill. And so we are where we are at this point. Everyone has come home. Nothing good is happening there before the election. We're just at an impasse, and we're going to let the American people decide. But I tell you, on every single issue, what is lacking is presidential leadership. We have fundamental comprehensive tax reform in the pipeline, ready to go. We need a president that will get behind it. We have a solution, bipartisan solution to Medicare. In the Ryan Biden plan, what we're missing is presidential leadership. And just at every turn, the jobs bills. Tell us what you're for. We all know his budget got 0 votes. So if that's any indication of his leadership style, he just needs to go. And we need to replace him with somebody that will work with Congress.
And of course, Medicaid, we'll be addressing Medicaid, and what we'll do for the first time is we'll put nursing homes and mental health inside Medicaid. Right now, those two entities are outside of managed care, and we're talking about patient-centered health care. So we'll need to bring nursing homes and mental health inside the managed care circle. And that's where, we're getting lots of pushback just to leave that alone. And I think with the school unions, I can see us passing some kind of legislation that prohibits unions from taking union dues directly out of employees' paychecks. I think we'll require the employees to write a separate check for union dues rather than having it just automatically taken out. That'll be a big deal. It passed the House in 10, but failed in the Senate. So when I talk about big policy changes, that's going to be one of them. And so you'll see a mushroom cloud when that thing comes across the House floor. So we have lots of positive things going on in Kansas. We've got the budget under control, and with Washington and the U.S. running out of money, we have less money coming back. And in the last 2 years since we've been in the House, it's been almost $800 billion less just coming back to the state of Kansas. So that kind of puts the financial picture in perspective. We were able to fund the necessary things that government needs to do and still put $500 million in the bank, even though we got $800 million less from DC. So we've done lots of positive things. Looking forward to this next session when we have a working majority. We're going to be in the crosshairs. We're going to have the majority, so we're going to have to govern correctly and well, or we're going to get a black eye and lose our position. So the good news is we're going to have a very strong working majority. The bad news is we better do a very good job and take advantage of it, because it's going to be, everybody's going to have this in their crosshairs, so we're going to have to do very good work. All right, thanks everybody for coming out. We'll see you later.